Yeah, so like we're just talking about health. We're sitting around the kitchen table. It's a fucking nice day in Jersey. Gabe's here, Drinkin Dave's here, fucking having a good morning, coffee. And there was something in the coffee today. What was that?
Just like led to discussing some like deep wisdom about taking it black and in the ass.
Very deep, very deep. No
Coffee.
doubt about that.
Coffee enemas and the health benefits.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or the healthy alternatives people look at. Oh, how can I make my lifestyle healthier? What supplements?
Well, we started talking about like the scam that were health food stores, right?
Oh,
Right. They were such a scam in the 80s. They were just ripping you off. They were fucking ripping you off.
Well, it's like wandering into a health food store is like wandering into church, you know? Like you're expecting like support, you know?
Right. You expect them to care. They care. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when you join the choir at church, you know?
Yeah. The priest isn't going to stick his dick in your ass, right?
Right.
And
just,
You know, you hope. I mean, that's not what you would expect.
and
you weren't planned. That wasn't your plan going in.
it's also like you know, okay, you go to like a candy store, you go in and you figure everything there is like candy, or you go into like a wine store, everything there is wine, so it's called a health food store. So you figure, hey, everything in here is health food. I want to be more healthy, which is already kind of like a quote air quotes term, right? Because what is healthy? There's no real. We have an idea of what healthy is, right? But
I think there's healthy. I mean, I
right.
think
Oh yeah, definitely,
it's really
definitely,
clear, like
definitely. But as far as
it's super
someone,
important concept,
right.
you know.
But someone saying, "Oh, this is healthy," and you say, "Okay, I go into this health food store. It's full of things that are like triple, double the prices of other places, but
Yeah.
a bunch of weird words like ashwagandha, which is fun to say. I don't know what it is.
Well, you know, there's so many things that came out. We were just talking about this yesterday, but that came out of the hippie movement that were good, but then they got abused or they got turned into something else.
Yeah, it could turn into a cult.
Yeah.
It's like the whole like 60s thing ending with Charles Manson, like, you know, weird cultists like killing people.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a bad example. I don't know.
No, that's the way society definitely sees the 60s ending.
Yeah.
Charles Manson ended the 60s, right?
Right.
And you know, it's funny that a lot of these things come from like the mystery of the Orient, right? It's ashwagandha, or this is turmeric from India.
Well, no, but that is you. I would have to say, like, I really don't. Being a guy who lived in Asia most of my life, like more than half my life, right? So I do not see it that way at all. Like, what I see is vulnerable, dumb people believing in hocus pocus. Like the Asians, they don't have any desire.
No, I know.
They don't see it as like exporting anything. You basically have a few scammers here, and they will see something. They will see a weakness in human nature, right? They'll see a belief in like something that they want to believe in, and they'll say, okay, then this is suddenly good or healthy, and they'll just use it.
Right, it's marketing. It's marketing of here's the mystery of the Orient. Here's how they stay so thin
It's snake
in
oil.
Asia.
It's snake oil,
you know?
but it's using Asian stuff as snake
right.
oil.
But, oh, we don't have it here. That's why you've never heard of it before. It's got this funny word.
Well,
it's $3 a pill.
I think Gabe is right though. There's a whole thing of like the selling the Asian mystique, like whatever the word you ashwagandha, like kneel and taking the wisdom of ashwagandha, you know, and then people like take that to the limit, you know, like they might actually think like they need to go to India to go to an ashram, like they're going to learn better yoga there when the yoga's better here, and the Indians are just over there waiting, like they're psyched. Like, they're not any different. They're just like, who are these dumb white girls coming to ashrams in India to do yoga? Basically, they're just here for us to do them.
Yeah. Sex and money. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing about spiritual. Like, they're just like...
build a business, make some money.
They're just like, here they are.
Screw a
like,
bunch of innocent girls.
Here they are trying to get to the source of wisdom and spirituality.
Yeah, and then you tell them what
and
it
it's
is.
just like fucking curry and fucking... Curry and like... You know, dump smell.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And what's so funny about the whole thing is the way that it takes so long for society and women, I would say, to understand these things. Like, how long was that Maharesh Mahesh Yogi or something was his name? Remember the guy in the 80s? There was a guy who went to Oregon. He had all the
Parashahama Yogananda.
something like that.
No, that's older. Osho was the guy in Oregon.
Yeah, Osho changed his name. Osho is the guy I'm talking about.
Oh,
But
Osho.
He changed his name to Osho before he
That's some
died.
kind of cult thing going on, right?
But he started in the 60s with the Beatles, right? And then he got over, and then he came over, and then he started this basically scam cult, and women fell into it. There's a great documentary about it on I don't know if it's Netflix or whatever, but then he started this great scam, and women just fell into this, and then it's taken like since the 60s, so it's taken 50 fucking years to realize he was a scammer. And like, how many like lives were ruined?
I don't know if you know, he had
People
I
like
think
want to believe these things.
His goal was to buy 100 Rolls Royces, and he had like 97 of them before he died. Rolls Royces, dude.
Yeah.
And then he,
No, I remember that. That's my generation. I remember him driving Rolls Royce. I remember the pictures, and I saw it from the outside. And my cousins are from Oregon, so we went up there often. And so I kind of saw. I wasn't so. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't so cognitively aware of what was going on, but it was around. You saw the people in the robes, the purple robes, whatever it was. You know, they were strange looking. You know, because they were quite. My cousins were quite close to that whole city they took over.
Yeah, I think they started getting like some kind of attention. They were buying guns or something like that. I don't really remember the story of it.
You got to watch the documentary.
Yeah.
The documentary is quite good, but
So-
it's just like another one of these scams that it plays on your human nature, and it's so easy to fall into them. There's a lot of scams like this. I think there's going to be scams in MGTOW too, where people are using kind of nefarious tools. They're using something real to get something fake. It's kind of whenever there's like quantum physics come out, all of a sudden all the scammers are quantum
There's
physics.
definitely that stuff in pickup.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a good thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing fucking wrong with Bitcoin, but a lot of people, snake oil guys, like they're just snake oil guys. Imagine with their briefcase and greasy hair, they're walking through the city, right? Those guys will always take something new and they'll just turn it into a scam.
Turn it into like a Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah, and then dumb people will say, "Oh,
Yeah.
I need to, I need to do this." Let me just give you an example because it's the details I think that matter to people. Like for example, Bitcoin is something you can buy on your own, right? I can give you $1, you can send me $1 worth of Bitcoin. There's no reason to have a bank. There's no reason for me to register my name. I can give you $1, just like I can buy this banana. I can give you $1, you can send me $1 in Bitcoin. There's no problem, and I own it. I have the private keys, no problem. The scam is they played on the fact that you didn't understand how to buy it, didn't understand it, so they said, okay, give us money and we'll make a fund. But it's literally as dumb as making a fund of US dollars. It's like if you had, let's say you had pesos and you're coming to America and you say, instead of just exchanging money to dollars and using them, some guy says into the, let's say a community, a bunch of, let's say a Hispanic community, and he says, guys, buying dollars is too complicated. I'll do it for you. You give me the money, and then it'll go into my company. We'll transfer. All the dollars will become, all the pesos will become dollars in this thing. And then when this is done, you're gonna get super rich and everything. Right. And they give all their money legally to the guy in a company that you can't access, even in bankruptcy. And then it's done. It's a way to use a good thing, and then people get confused because it's like, was this a scam? Was that a scam? Right. That wasn't a scam. Well, it was how it was used.
Speaking of like really breathtaking scams, speaking of like a breathtaking scam that was just on the news yesterday, what'd you guys think about like Steve Bannon getting arrested for like defrauding Trump supporters?
Yeah, I don't know because I want to hear more about that because Guo Wenwei was the guy, the Chinese guy,
Chinese billionaire on the yacht.
No, I know him quite well, and I want to hear more because this could be something else.
Could be that he's innocent. The post office was just like getting revenge.
So no,
the post office arrested him.
I don't know. I'm not saying anything.
I didn't know the post office could arrest you.
I want to say.
You worry about the cops in the rearview mirror. You don't really worry about the post office.
There was a mailman stealing Netflix DVDs.
Right,
so,
right. No, not commonly. Yeah. No, but I would just say with that one, I would say that Guo Wenwei said many things that I thought were quite wise. in the past. Now that doesn't mean he can't be a scammer,
Right.
because scammers can, it's 99% truth and 1% lies, and that kills everything.
Right.
So I'm not saying he's not a scammer.
Well, but I guess
I don't know much about the other guys, but
well, it's pretty simple. It's just like
I know more about
Steve
Wallen,
Bannon and some of these other guys. He had a couple guys, like some crippled like vet. Like they rolled out a guy like with no legs from the war, who's like, send me your money, we'll build the wall. All the money is going to go to the wall. Like I won't promising, like we won't, not a dollar to us, crowdfunding thing. And they just found out like Steve Bannon like siphoned off $1 million for like paying off like his like credit card.
Okay.
And they arrested him. So it looks like it's like it's an amazing example of a good thing. Like where Trump, maybe like maybe Trump's not bad. Trump's like saying like, build the wall, like keep out the Mexicans, and some people are like, yeah, that makes sense. But then some guy comes along and says like, uses that and says, give me $5, we'll do it.
I think
and then he just takes the money.
So I don't think the key though was not keeping out the Mexicans, because a lot of people from the Middle East and also from South America and Central America come through that border. I think at least I looked at it as a security issue, just like you'd have a lock on the door or something. Even if the door is open, you say, well, those people are mainly good because they're from that country. But you have to say, wait a second, if we have laws and stamps and passports, we have to keep track of who's coming in. That's what I saw it as more than keeping out. But I would say this. I'd say this is like, it made me think of the crippled guy. Made me think of something. I would say wait on that one. One thing I don't do in my podcast is jump on trends, because I wait until I see what happens, and I'm totally willing to turn on anybody or anything. I don't have any loyalty. Right. In the sense, it's all about truth. So for me, like in the end, if this ends up being true, I will totally go for it. Like I will dig in deep. I have nothing to protect at all. This is what I love doing.
I'm willing to give the guy a break. I mean,
in fact, I love switching actually when I see that something switch. But
I was disappointed Steve Bannon got arrested because I'm going for his look. Like the Steve Bannon look.
Oh, you're gonna get to a little bit of Steve Bannon going on there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I got the Steve Bannon look going on. I feel like he was making my look cool again.
You know what they reminded me of what you said though, because they used a crippled guy, right? They used a crippled guy apparently. What you're saying, right? I remember there was a video that was passed around. You guys probably passed it around.
I'm making breakfast.
It was so viral. Do you remember the video of the guy who
Coney, the African guy?
No. The guy who was basically crippled. He had these like metal things. He was a Vietnam vet, he's an Iraq vet, and he had all these things. And then he did yoga.
Oh, right.
And the next thing you know, he's running and he's super, super strong. Yeah. And I looked at it, and there was something wrong with that video. There was something I just looked at. I thought I don't like that. I don't know why. There's something in my like red flags going off. And then I sent it to Charlie, my yoga teacher, right? And Charlie looked at it and he goes, Charlie's very, very, very sharp. And he goes, what that is? He goes, why I don't like it. I didn't say anything to him, right? But you get this, Dave. So he said the reason why I don't like it is because that guy. Okay, they made it look like he was basically he was what do you call it? Like handicapped because of injuries from the war, from battle, and then yoga fixed him. Right now, everybody knows I like yoga, so that's the complication with these things, right? And you got to be honest with yourself.
Like yoga helped me grow back my leg.
Yoga fixed everything, right? And the thing is, yoga's amazing, and I in some ways I feel like that. I feel like it does fix everything. In some ways, it's absolutely amazing. But the thing is, in this case, if you look at the guy, really look at the guy, and look at the video, and everybody cheering, and the music, you know what it really is? And Charlie said this. He goes, that is a fat guy who lost weight. It's a weight loss thing. And it's basically, and they're using yoga, and he goes, yoga doesn't really help you lose weight. So it's not like I've known some very heavy guys who do yoga. And actually,
sure, it seems like all the hot chicks do yoga.
Well, the thing is people that do yoga tend to not want to do eat a lot of French fries and stuff. Right. And so you do. It's like when you finish running, you don't want a cup of coffee, you want a cup of water.
Right.
But there are very obese guys who do yoga. I know a guy who teaches it, and he looks terrible. So
yeah.
It's not necessarily that way, but. The thing is they used yoga and him being a vet and supposedly crippled, but was he really crippled? He had these metal things on his legs, but were they given by a doctor? Like, we didn't even know
Right.
the real story. Like, he had these metal things, but I could go get crutches, for example, from the Salvation Army. They often have them in there for like
Yeah.
$5, and I could walk around in crutches.
Right.
But does that mean my legs are broken? It doesn't mean that, you
Yeah.
know. And it's like I just bought some crutches and I'm walking around trying to make some, some,
Yeah.
eye patch. It doesn't mean your eye doesn't work, right? So
Yeah.
it's like it was like all these visual things, and like nothing was like explained. Everything was just assumed, and you're watching a video, and then you assume that you can go from being a crippled veteran from bombs and guns and bullets and broken bones and brain
Yeah, you do
injuries,
yoga
and then suddenly you can do yoga and you can be sprinting at world-class speed. That's what he was sprinting at the end. It had nothing to do with sprinting. Has nothing to do with yoga at all. And the yoga people don't even run usually.
Right.
They don't even, usually most yoga people don't even lift weights. They just do
Right.
yoga, And so it was just, it was like, I thought, I hate that kind of stuff because I love yoga and I hate when someone's using it. It's not a weight loss thing. It's not a sprinting thing. It's not a comeback from bombs and guns and bullets thing. I think it is kind of like for my back injury, I think my yoga really did
Right.
Well-
truly help me.
What's your view on like Kundalini yoga? Like people try to say it's like a sex thing.
Okay, okay. Now, luckily, I'm not using my real name because I actually know a guy who's running a full-on scam with this. I think,
Yeah.
and I don't like it, but I'm not going to stop. I can't stop
Because
the
you
guy.
can use yoga and say you're a Kundalini yoga thing to get like chicks.
Oh,
Oh, I
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Right.
Yoga is easy to use. I would say, and I think there's many types of yoga, and I'm not saying I'm an expert on yoga or anything. I'm not yoga. What is his name? Ram Maharishi Gandhi, whatever his name is.
Swami Paramahansa
Yeah.
Yogananda.
I am him. No, actually, no. So, but
You're a
He's one of-
reincarnation. You're a reincarnation
totally.
of him.
Yeah. Where's my Rolls
Yeah.
Royce? Where's my fucking Rolls? Yeah.
You gotta start with one. We'll get
Seriously,
to 100.
okay, let's get you. Start with one, guys. Send a Rolls.
Send your Rolls Royces
I mean,
too.
occasionally those guys get born outside of Tibet. Once in a while, they not often.
Sometimes they do in Arizona.
Sometimes
they're
you
born in
get,
Arizona.
sometimes you get reincarnated. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe not like in New Jersey, but
Well-
west of the Mississippi for sure.
Right. It's
Right.
the desert that causes this. It's an Indian desert and or Arizona. No, but so the thing is
Tantric ones.
I think that there's the way to think about yoga. There of course there are many good things. And when I was in Vegas, I was a member of a yoga place where they had all these types. It was kind of nice because you didn't have to pick a teacher to be a disciple.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you
Actually,
could
that's
just
pretty
go to
cool.
any class you wanted.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
actually.
it was
That's great.
good. It was good. It was very, very good yoga place. But the thing is and I did go to like different ones. I went to every one pretty much.
Yeah.
I actually went to every one they had actually.
Yeah, try them all.
And I said, what do I think is real?
Yeah, I've tried quite a few as well.
I think
But I had to go to different places. Yeah.
for me the thing about yoga, or the thoughts for yoga, is that one, you have to understand that a lot of people are insincere. So Instagram yoga is common. And that's the thing you have to really watch out for, because when you're new, you won't know the difference, because everything will hurt and be hard.
Right.
Even Instagram yoga
Right,
will be hard.
right,
So
right.
it's really difficult. So you need somebody that you really trust, who really knows it for a long time. And that's why I asked Charlie advice, because I believe that he knows enough, long enough, he's done it long enough, and he has enough experience that he can see through the weeds. So you're not going to see through the weeds, but you need somebody else who sees through the weeds with
Right.
yoga. And that's not easy to find, because most of them are really, honestly, most people, once they have power, they really abuse
Yeah,
it. So,
it's similar to like fake martial arts, right? Where people will
really
do-
similar, really similar.
Well, the people that learned from a bullshit guy, they think they know how to fight.
Right.
You know,
They
Right.
think they know, right.
how to fight,
Yeah.
but
It's like-
they'll get their ass kicked in 2 seconds because they don't know. They've never been hit. They've never been under real duress.
Uh-huh.
In 20 years of training.
Well, plus they've only had one punch thrown at them, the same punch
Right.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's all anyone's going
But
to do.
they've never
yeah.
been physically
Yeah.
contacted in an aggressive way.
Right.
They don't know what it feels like.
Hold the
It's
martial
like-
arts, because
no.
this is a really good example. But let
It's
me finish the yoga real quick.
So real quick,
Yeah.
I just want to say that, like Steven Seagal, like with the hand,
Oh, God.
right? He's the classic guy of the hand.
There's a million of those guys.
Like,
Yeah.
That's the
of
problem.
Just like lived in Japan for a while, and then like it's got the hand karate thing going on, like the quick hand karate.
Well, there's
you watch a few of those movies, you think you got it down,
Right? death
And,
punch
and that's,
from 3
you know,
feet, right? You know.
But the internet's helped with those kind. You know, the internet kind of dispels some of this thing. Then again, I'm a little disappointed that just like Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a little bit sad to see Steven Seagal's stock go down. So I was working on that look. I was working on that look too.
Yeah.
Steven Seagal.
You know,
well, you got to get
I
the
was like
hand
I
when
was
you're
like
making the coffee.
a cross between Steve Bannon and Steven Seagal.
Okay.
And I don't know what I'm going to do about it now.
I think Jesus
You know?
is the next one.
Yeah,
Just
you
go
gotta
Jesus.
go the
Just
beer.
Go for
Jesus.
the gold there. You know, don't.
Just go for the gold.
Yeah,
Just
get
start selling plastic Jesuses of myself. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay with yoga. So I would say think this way, or this is not a bad way to think. Okay, what I would say is that the one that really helps me, I think, is the most like physical. If I think of a man yoga that's hard, they're all hard, and I know some. There's really a lot of yoga guys on this channel actually, so there will be like hardcore yoga guys who disagree, and that's great actually. But I would say for the uninitiated, the way to think is the 26 poses and the 2 breathing of that. There was the what was that originally Bikram. That was originally Bikram. Those are great simple poses. They're difficult to learn. It takes a long time to learn. And you know, one thing I learned is if you put too much weight on the bar, you can't do a good set. Right. But you look good, right? So don't try to don't put all the weight on the bar. Get so you can do a set of 6 and you can burn your muscles, right? So with yoga, I would say the set of 6, weightlifting set of 6 is the 26 and 2. Focus on those. And the reason why the hot is good is because, like me, I'm not flexible naturally. I'm very inflexible. So the heat really helps me to get to open up, and then that opens up your body further because now you've pushed past. Right. It's like some guy might get drunk and have sex for the first time when he's young. Once he's had sex, he's going to have sex again, no problem. But the alcohol got him to that point where he got this.
Now he's reliant on it.
Yeah.
No. The opposite. No, a lot of times you when you're 16, you get drunk and you end up having sex, and then you had sex. So now you're through that barrier. You're not afraid anymore, and it's easy to have sex, or it's no problem. Now you're used to it. So the thing is with yoga, that hot, it pushes yourself through it, and then you can kind of like now you've opened up your body more, and that doesn't go away. So you you might have to warm up a little bit. That is now part of your.
I don't know. It
your
sounds like you might be onto like a new kind of yoga. You could call it like hot hard man yoga.
I think that's a lot of.
I think that's a good concept. It's hot, hard, man.
Hot,
it's
hard,
men.
Hot, hard man yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, you might attract like a certain clientele.
That's
it may need a disclaimer.
But that's by mistake. That wouldn't be on purpose. Yeah. Well, the thing is, you could have certain outfits you wear when you're doing yoga, like chaps. So that would be that might set the tone properly or something.
A little too obvious.
Oh, I see.
Winter coats.
Yeah.
Winter coats.
Okay.
That's
all right. So back to yoga. So
right.
yoga is hard. Do the ones that are hard. Do the ones that are ugly. Do the ones that don't look good. Do the ones that you're going to feel like a moron. Do the ones that take like a year to have any progress. Those are the ones that have big effects,
So I want to take it back to a couple of things.
And let me just say, so just that simple mindset will help you.
Yeah.
You're just simple. Just realize that, all those ones with ropes and beer yoga, all these things, they're actually dangerous.
Did you say beer
there's
yoga?
Beer yoga. There's beer yoga.
Yeah,
You
I
drink
saw
beer
yoga. They
while
have
you're
all
doing
kinds. They have yoga
Wow.
with puppies, where they have puppies running around. It's quite cute.
They have all these
quite
things.
cute.
And the thing is...
It's kind of like too much beer yoga could lead to hot, hard man yoga. Right? Like where, you might have a problem with beer yoga if you're like, find yourself in a
I'm
hot,
telling you,
hard
when you're
man
doing,
yoga.
when you're doing yoga sometimes, it's pretty ridiculous. I was doing yoga in Shanghai, and I was at Y Plus in Mission TND, and it was me and my mom was in town, and she wanted to do yoga, so we went did one day at Y Plus, and I had never been there. It's like a real fancy part of Shanghai, and literally, I swear, there was like 40 girls in the class, all girls, and all hot, and there was a big mirror, and because there was no guys there, they were like dressed with nothing. I mean, like, it was incredible. Like, you would never see this in America. Like, and also even in Chinatown, you wouldn't see it because people have really gained a lot of weight since then. This is like almost 10 years ago.
And you see a lot of bush. See a lot of bush in that class.
No, it was this. And you literally.
What do you mean, like under the arm, or
You literally, when I was going forward,
that's disgusting.
right? There was a girl with her ass right in my
Say
face.
downward fucking dog.
No, get this. Her ass is in my face. I could literally smell. I could smell. I'm a smell guy, and I could smell the box. I mean, it was so hot in my face, and she knew it. She was right in my face. And all the girls knew it, and it was like they were been. Everybody was showing in the mirror. It was like incredible. My mom was like, "What the fuck with this place?" Yeah. But I was just like, this is totally ridiculous, you know. So there's other advantages sometimes with yoga, you know.
So I want.
But I don't say to do it for
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well,
That's just one.
that's a
time.
well-known thing. Like I was sitting.
I ignore it though. I really do. 99% of the time, I have blinders on because I go in there for
that's
yoga.
Very zen.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this one time was just too
Impossible.
much. It was impossible. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was like a porn movie.
Well, that's when you should.
I was like, what the hell's going on here? You
That's
know?
when you should have broken out some Kundalini moves.
Yeah.
Well, no, the smartest thing for me to do is act like I didn't even notice.
Right, exactly.
I don't even notice.
That's
Like,
it.
don't even, what is that
That's it.
smell, you know?
You
So,
just didn't lose your mind and turn into like an ape.
it was probably like that smell of that candle. Oh, who has that candle with the vagina?
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow's
Right,
candle.
right.
It was like, probably, you know,
Yeah.
that type of smell. She has a smell of her vagina candle.
That's what I was saying. If I
I heard it's quite popular.
Yeah, if I knew
Even
her
with
son,
girls.
if I was friends with her kids, I would buy that candle and always have it around when I'm gonna hang out with that kid. Be like, oh, just light it when he's around. Oh, you smell that? Oh, that's your mom's candle. That's
Oh, I'm sure he
It smells
knows.
so-
I'm sure he's
Oh.
like, this is like, you know, kids, the first thing they're going to do is, Mom has a candle. What? You know, they're going to get
Right.
everyone's going to go buy the candle. And
So, I
Is the Gwyneth Paltrow pussy candle like? Do you think that would be popular for like candlelight dinners?
Yeah.
Probably doesn't go well
What's
with
this
food.
one?
well, no. I heard
go well
it's, I heard
food?
it's quite like I heard it's one. I heard it's quite accurate. Two, I heard it's quite
from
nice.
her husband,
Yeah.
right? From her
Yeah, like I
husband.
even thought
She's
of
like,
getting
oh.
one. I thought it'd be nice to have that smell around the
I
house.
think they're expensive and they're hard to get, but I think it's a collector's
really?
item.
Oh, really?
Probably when she dies, you could sell them for quite a bit.
I don't
you
think
know? You know, get an autograph.
If
one.
she put her
That's-
name on it, it's probably pretty easy to buy. I suspect.
No, but I think they sell out. That's what I mean.
Oh,
Like they're
So
hard
this
to
could
get
be
their hands
a good business they do. You, like instead of being like the guy that makes fake Gucci bags,
Yeah.
you're making fake Gwyneth Paltrow pussy candles.
on. Yeah.
Like some,
You
I
can-
wonder if that's a. But I wonder if
I'm
that's
telling
a,
you, if when
Let's
she
get a
dies,
factory
in
set up
40
in
years,
China
I
for
wonder
that,
if it's
yeah.
hard to replicate.
Or someone
Yeah.
that collects autographs instead you
Smells
collect,
are difficult to
you
replicate.
collect instead of collecting celebrity autographs, you collect celebrity genital smells.
Well, I once
Like, I
had.
wonder
A
if
little
that, I wonder if
collection.
like is like the chemical composition of that smell. Like
Yeah.
is it like the recipe for Coca-Cola? Like is it secret and
Yeah,
guarded
per person, sure.
like guarded in a safe somewhere?
Well, here's the thing.
You know, like-
Here's the thing.
like-
when I was
Is it
doing
that
headhunting,
bullshit?
when I was doing headhunting, there was a search for the first flavor and smell guy to make the first fake crab meat in Japan.
Ah,
And so the search came in, and nobody knew. They said, where can we find this guy who's a specialist in meat flavors and smells? And they said, honestly, we have no idea, because it's never been done. There at that point, there had never been a fake seafood guy. There was no seafood smell. Nobody knew what they were doing, and so the search went like this. This is part of the headhunter's job, is to figure out the difficult, right?
Right.
So what we ended up doing is getting a cat food guy, and he made the first, because he was doing cat food flavors. He made the first fake crab meat.
Wow.
You know, so the thing is, these guys exist that will, and then when I wanted to.
I wonder if like the fake seafood smell guy ended up on the Gwyneth Paltrow team.
Well, here's another follow up. I wanted to start a tea company, right? I still have an idea for a great idea for a tea company, and I needed a flavor, so I contacted like companies that could do flavors, and there's one in New York. They charge $50,000, and they will mix flavors. And like I describe something for them, and then they will make a flavor for you,
You guys
and
want
give you
egg-
the chemical
You
formula.
guys want eggs? I'm cooking it. I got.
Eggs sound good, man.
Yeah.
Sound good.
So I want to rein it back in a little bit towards like scammy stuff, and we'll get back to the health food thing. But I want to say with scam artists, there's a thing that the person scamming actually has to know quite a bit, right? It's kind of that thing like you have to know all the rules before you can break them, kind of deal.
Well,
where
it's like it's like you're a predator, and you have to know your prey.
right. So you have
Right.
to you have
Right.
to you have to actually have quite a bit of knowledge, I would think, to the initial guy, right? So when we're talking about like health food or yoga or martial arts, the initial people or the Bitcoin one's a good example. Like the guy had to know the scammers, the Bitcoin scammers have to know quite a bit about Bitcoin to set up these things.
Not that much. No, they all they needed to know was it could have been explained over coffee by me, for
Right.
example, or anybody who knows Bitcoin. They could have said, yeah, here's. It was a thing. Like everybody was trying to start. I think some of those guys that were trying to start Bitcoin funds, like I have a friend who started a legit Bitcoin fund, and he'd made a ton of money. And his basic pitch was, this is the very beginning of Bitcoin, but his pitch was this. And he went to rich guys who didn't know anything.
Right.
And he said, look, I'll buy the Bitcoin, and basically they would own it, but essentially he would take 30%.
Right.
And now that sounds terrible. Like the guy is not my favorite guy in the whole world,
Right.
but the
At
thing
the
is,
time it was so cheap, probably.
they were like a couple dollars.
Right.
And now they're like $11,000 or something,
Yeah.
right? So those guys that lost 30% of a couple dollars,
Yeah.
they think he's a
they
hero.
made so much money that it
They
didn't
think
matter.
he's a hero. I mean, let's say it was $2. Let's say it was $2. It wasn't $2, but let's just say it was $2, and they lost 60 cents, so they got $1.40.
Yeah.
That $1.40, okay, for one Bitcoin, is now worth $11,000. So he was like legit. He did not steal the money. They made enormous amount of money, and in a sense, he did him a favor because these were the kind of guys that would not have bought Bitcoin on their own.
Right.
And there's never been, I don't think there's ever been a return like that in
Right.
history. I think $2 or $2 to $11,000, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, that just
Yeah.
doesn't happen. So that guy was legit, although he did take a lot, and a lot of people didn't like it. You
Right.
can take the top off there. A lot of people didn't like the fact he did, but the other guys that are full-on scammers, you don't need to know that much to be a full-on scammer. All you got to know is that all you got to, it can be explained very quickly. So no, I would dispel that notion.
You know what's an
Yeah.
interesting one is pickup, because
He
when-
turned it off. He turned it
No,
off.
I just
Yeah.
lowered it. Not
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. An interesting one was pickup when that was kind of big. There was a lot of scammers in both sense. In one, there was scammers teaching pickup, but then there was also scammers teaching you how to scam girls. In some sense, to like
Where was that? I never
just
saw it.
online. It was very big, like say maybe 2007 or 8. It was after the game had already picked up steam. Online marketing was kind of like in its not infancy, but
Right,
it was
right.
kind of coming into its own also. And that was, when Mystery had his show on VH1. Pickup was very, in kind of in the mainstream consciousness a little bit. So, you'd get a lot of guys that were pickup artists that, again, one, they really weren't pickup artists. They were good at advertising things online. And then, two, you had guys that were,
I think this one's not good for me because I really don't know these guys, so I
Right,
don't know.
right,
I can't really say, but yeah, no. Anything that has power, anything that's effective, anything that's good can be a scam. Like traveling. I've seen people I've seen this before, and it's tempting to do actually. It's not that this one is kind of tempting because it's not really a scam, but I don't like it. My standards are above this, but I've seen guys who, for example, they'll move to the Philippines, right? And then they'll have a YouTube channel, and then they open a resort.
You guys want to say
Okay.
good morning?
Hey, Abby. Oh, Abby. How old is Abby?
15.
15. You're 15. You're a good girl. Yeah.
it's like $1 million in dollars.
You're a good
Look, she's
girl.
literally long in the tooth.
Yeah. And she's kind of smiling there. But she's cruising. Old Abby, she gets around, She does her thing. She's blind, and she doesn't, she's relaxed. She grew up in this house. She knew this house.
Yeah.
So what was I just saying? I just lost my train of thought.
We were talking about scammers. Fuck.
Yeah. What was that? I was just talking about something.
Abby. All scams start. Good things could something about good things. Shit. Well, okay. Let's go back to the health food thing. Maybe this will bring it back, because where we started with was you walk into a health food store and things are expensive, right? Like that's
Yeah, but we kind of did the health food store because they don't really exist anymore. You know, they
totally
started.
exist. It's just probably less than
They started from the hippies, and the hippies, you know, they had some good things. Like one of the ideas they had was to eat raw or eat simple. So like a lot of people were eating wheat off the plant, and wheat off the plant, as any Canadian knows who's around a wheat area, they're very tasty and very good.
Right.
Nothing wrong. You don't even have to cook it. It's tasty.
right.
Just right off the plant. There's a lot of things like that you can eat. The hippies, they when it came to food, they ate very simple things, and you know they weren't eating McDonald's. You know,
Right.
and that was to their advantage. You know, that's if you look at ethnic food, why is it popular? Usually because it's more simple.
Yeah.
And it's not processed as much.
Right.
You know, so they started with a good thing. You know, it was an option to get away from processed food, cake mixes. You know, just all this stuff that was coming out, and then people said, oh, there's a way to like to not to turn it into a business, because there's nothing wrong with making a business, but there's a way to deceive people using this truth, and that's kind of what happened. So all of a sudden you walk in the health store and you didn't know the quality of anything. It turns out that a lot of the Chinese herbs, the Chinese medicine, is grown in very polluted dirt,
Right.
and they have high levels of lead and mercury and all kinds of things. And that stuff is really bad for you. Like this is stuff that we got out of our food in the U.S. Kind of never was in our food, really.
Right.
Did you know? Did you ever hear that method of like that you can take?
It's so evil. It was never. You know, it's pretty evil. Like that kind of stuff with what's in there.
Did you know you can pull out anything bad out of food by soaking it in a dilution of Clorox?
No way. No way. No.
Dude, it's true.
No.
True.
No.
Look it up.
Let's
It's actually the State Department will tell people, like it's on it's part of the State Department like survival guide for diplomats in China, places like that, like where the food could be grown in like soil.
There's
with,
so
like,
many things
with,
like
lead and and like evil
Because
metals
you just
and
pour Clorox
and what you
on
do
your-
is you take what you do is like
you can
you
do
take-
things
take,
to
like,
make it better, but
like not a lot of Clorox, like a little bit of Clorox in like, you know, it's like in a big thing of water, and then you soak your vegetables and even your meat in there, and it pulls all that stuff out. It's like making it, or it's like with Clorox.
Yeah.
you
Let
can
me
make your
tell you.
food
Let me
organic.
tell you.
It's true.
No, it's not true.
True, dude.
Let me tell you something. When I was in Shanghai, one of my friends, his brother is a gold medal winner. I'm not going to say what sport because you'll know who he is, but he's a gold medal winner and pretty famous. And so he was visiting us, and I knew this guy's brother was like this, and his brother's actually very successful too, business wise. But he was visiting; they were both visiting, and so we went out to dinner. I took him out to dinner, to my favorite restaurant. And then when the meat came, he said, "I can't eat the meat," and I was like, "Why not? Are you vegan? Are you vegetarian?" He said, "No, because there was some U.S. athletes that visited China before, and they just went to regular restaurants, Peking duck and stuff, and they tested positive for all these steroids, and they ended up losing their gold medals and stuff,
Right.
not being able to compete in the Olympics." And he said, even a little bit, we can't eat. Like it's very, very serious. So I was like shocked, and I didn't even think he was. I wasn't even like. I mean, he's a gold medal winner. I mean, you know, and he wasn't just one. This guy is numerous, right? And so I was like, so then I looked it up, and sure enough, it's totally true. Like, there are things in food there in China that you can't take out with Clorox. Let me give you another example, Dave. Is they
Dude,
take?
I think you're underestimating the power of Clorox.
they take sewage oil, okay, from the sewer, like
gutter oil.
there's gutter oil, and sometimes there's even like sewage, and then you can watch it online.
Yeah,
You
you
can
boil
search
it and get
search
it all.
gutter oil
Yeah.
Shanghai or China
Yeah.
on YouTube, and you can watch a video where they heat it up, they put it through nets, and they keep heating it up and cooking it, and they're using different nets, thinner and thinner, or finer and finer, and then finally it becomes clear, and they sell it to the restaurants again. This is so carcinogenic. It's like there's no test for it. It's just unbelievably terrible for you. And speaking of scammers, these oil guys,
Right.
but they say that 5% of the oil in China is sewage oil.
Right.
So, in fact, sewage oil even showed up in a 5-star hotel in China and they're like, "How the hell could this happen?"
Yeah.
It was one of the guys in the kitchen, and he basically said, "I can make a bunch of money by selling the oil to the gutter guy," because the gutter guy bought the good oil,
Right.
and then he
Right.
replaced the bottles with the same
Yeah,
brand.
that's what I tried to explain to someone when I was in China. It was like you could buy something,
But you
in
can
a
do
store.
anything you want to that oil, and that oil is carcinogenic from the beginning.
Yeah.
And absolutely poisonous, and then
Yeah.
just it's no in no way safe.
Yeah, this thing in China, like you could go to a store. Let's say you buy these M&Ms. The next day, you could come back and buy the same exact bag that was in the same exact spot, and that might not be actual M&Ms in that bag.
No, I know,
you
I know. I actually know the Budweiser. No, sorry, the Heineken. The guy who represents Heineken in Shanghai, and he said that he would go to the bars on Tongren Road near my house, and he said he'd go to the bars, and they would be using fake Heineken. So he'd go in there and tell them you can't do that, and then they would say, "Oh, we're sorry, we didn't know," and he'd give them real Heineken for a good price, like he was totally fair,
Right.
But then the next he'd come back like a month later, fake
Back to
Heineken
it,
again,
yeah.
So it was totally like it's very difficult whenever you don't have penalties for scammers. If there's no penalties,
It runs rampant.
and that's the problem with things like, for example, family court. There's, as far as I know, in most states, there's no penalty for perjury in family court. Now, any other court, perjury is a serious crime because it's a crime of lying to the courts, and it's considered the worst thing.
Right.
Because it's there's nothing really worse than perjury in the sense that once you've perjured yourself, your testimony means nothing.
Right. You
'Cause
lied
anything
once,
you
you're
say,
gonna keep lying.
yeah, you've already perjured yourself. So anything that you say in court is basically written
Right.
off totally and not even
Yeah.
allowed to be spoken in court.
But in family court,
Court.
that's interesting. I didn't know that. Family
Yeah.
court, you could just lie as much as you want. They
That's
found
right.
you as lying. You're like, that was a lie. You're like, oh, you caught me, but
Yeah, exactly. He's a mouse murderer. Well, okay, well, he's
I had
not.
to lie because.
Yeah, it's like, So because there's no penalty, for example, in China for sewage oil, there's no real penalty. I found a sewage oil factory next to Jiaotong University, the third best university in China, where I studied Chinese. There is, in fact, if you're listening to this now, go to Fanyulu. You can two ways to pronounce it. Go to the exit on Fanyulu, come out, turn left, cross the street, and look. You can even look on the ground at the oil from the restaurant inside Jiaotong University and follow the oil drops, and it'll go to, if you really look carefully at the street, it'll go to between these two buildings. Open the door or look through the door because there's a crack. You will see a sewage oil factory there. I mean, this is downtown Shanghai. The last time I was there, this is not like 100 years ago, and people just look the other way, and they're just like, because there's no real penalty. There's no real penalty. Like, I think these type of penalties, like when you poison food, when you lie about this type of stuff, when you make carcinogenic things that are basically long-term killers, it should definitely be the death penalty. Like, there should be no mercy for that.
Poisoning food.
Yeah, because that's why poisoning is so much worse than, say, like women poison people. The very few men poison people.
Right.
But in history,
It's,
women-
the arsenic in the coffee is kind of like
Yes.
a very...
Yes, and Dave put it in today's coffee.
Yeah, which was
That's
tasty
why
for
we're
now.
But the poisoning is something that it's a covert way, and it's a long-term way because you can poison somebody over time and they don't even know.
Yeah, right.
That's why poisoning. That's why the penalties are so severe when somebody finally does get caught.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even know what to do because it goes into your body. It's so
Right.
scary. It gets absorbed in your bloodstream.
Well, China.
There's no way to get it
and
out.
again, that's something China's semi-famous for: the plastic rice or the baby food. The baby food one being the most egregious one.
Well, I don't think I want to. I'll do a little
Well, I think
defending
the
China here. I don't think it's China. I think it's when you have corruption, and when you have no real penalty, for these things, like Mengniu, the milk company, when they basically, their system was like this.
I don't know this one.
Okay, Mengniu is really famous. It's really good to know this one. The story broke in 2008, but what it was is they started to water down the milk. Okay, all the milk companies in China were watering down the milk, and so the problem is the milk touches about an average of 8 people before it gets to the consumer. Before milk gets to baby foods, in particular, it goes through 8 hands. Now the problem was before it becomes milk powder. So 8 people along the way were watering it down. And then what they would do was they would add, I forget the chemical. There's a chemical that you can put in water, and if you test it for protein, okay, it will show up as having protein, but it's actually not protein at all. It's another chemical, but it fools the test into saying there's protein in that liquid. So they test milk in China, they test powdered milk, but they test it for protein. That's how they see if it's real. The problem is the test was fooled by this chemical. So all the milk people knew it, and then along the way the 8 guys would all add some of that chemical and take away.
So at the
milk.
end it had no nutrients or something like that.
In the end, it wasn't milk at all.
Just
It was
water with
just
colors.
it was
Water.
just chemicals and powder, and like there was no milk at all. There was zero nutritional value in the final milk. And so what happens is many babies died.
Right.
And this scandal broke at the same time, just before the Olympics and just after the Sichuan earthquake. So the Chinese government did not want this to taint their beautiful Olympics breakthrough as a modernized,
Right.
country. So they basically covered it up. And the president of Mengyo, right? The president is now, I believe he still is, the head of the FDA in China for Food and Drug Administration. He was promoted after he killed tons of kids and permanently damaged tons of kids. This motherfucker was promoted by these fucking gangsters. That's all you can say. And anybody will agree with that. That is a human being. That is fucking wrong. This is absolutely outrageous. There should be the death penalty all the way down the road, and for anybody who pardoned him. Right. Everybody to the top should go down with this one. Yeah. Because this one is the thing, you can't let this kind of thing go on, because these things never stop.
Right.
Right. And even if they don't stop, even if they do stop, I think that humanity has you need to know that things are fair in life. Like, that's why there needs to be a penalty for perjury. That's why there needs to be a penalty for poisoning. So I think scammers, they somehow find a system or a way, or they congregate in places where they're not being punished.
Yeah.
And so...
And that goes to how complex these things get also. Again,
of course.
The one with the plastic rice. Or that formula, knowing the test, how to fool the tests. It's a lot of smart people involved in gaming these things.
I don't think it's that smart. I disagree with this. I know what you're saying, and I'm not saying you're wrong. A lot of people agree with you, like listening even. But I personally, to me, I have brain power to burn on this stuff. I could just be coming up with scams right and left. It'd be so easy. But the thing is, it's evil. It's actually simple. Like, you think about it, it's simple. Let's say you light a fire. Let's say there's a data center, like a Google data center. It takes a lot of brains to make that place. Can you imagine the amount of like computer engineering and cooling and just everything from making a computer from bits and ones, zeros and ones, and all the software, everything that went from that to like, what is this data center? But all you need is some gasoline and a match to burn the whole place down, right?
Right.
And then there's nothing, it's just gone, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to destroy, and it's very difficult to build. So that's why I think there's a glorification of criminals, a glorification of scammers. I know there's a lot of glorification of the Chinese scammers, like the guy who made fake eggs as if he's like total genius. I think there's too much glorification. And there's too much glorification of serial killers. Like, it's not that hard. Like,
or poisoners. Like, you got like, if somebody's like poisoning people, you got to call them out.
Right.
Like Putin. Like.
Right. Like, his opponent now is poisoned.
Not cool, right?
Yeah.
Not cool at all. And the other guy was poisoned in the UK.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know that the guy is, obviously we think it's Putin is behind it, but also governments are not just one person, right? There are a number of
interests.
Yeah. Like, you know what interesting, Dave? You'll like this story. I think I don't know if I told this before, but I was dating this chick, or I should say I was boning this married chick who was like 35 at the time or whatever, and I was young. I was like 25, and to me she was an older woman, but her grandpa? I can't remember who it was. It was somebody in her family. It might have been her dad. It was somebody really close to her. Was the president of Toshiba. During the scandal, when Toshiba sold ultra quiet motors to submarines in I think it was Russia, and so that was totally like against the all the blockades and everything the U.S. had.
Right.
And so when it came to light, the guy who was the president, he stepped down, and that's just pretty normal, right?
Right.
But everybody assumed that because he was president,
He'd kill himself.
no. Because he was president, they assumed that he knew.
Right.
Because this was like a big decision for the company Toshiba to sell these things, right? Why you would of course go to the top. But I know the girl was related to him. The guy actually had no clue at all. Like the company, it's a massive conglomerate,
Yeah.
and somebody in some division decided to sell these things, and just to make profit for his division. The guy had no clue. Not everything runs through the president. If you know presidents, if you're friends with people who start companies and multinationals, you'll realize right away that there's a lot of things they don't know about their own company. In fact, they can get pretty out of touch.
Right.
Like I wonder if Bill Gates can still program, a modern Windows, computer. Like,
Right.
I don't know if he can still program this stuff. Like it's gone way past where he was. But I'm not that he's saying it doesn't bring value to the company, but they get pretty out of touch with things. What's going on,
Yeah.
no matter how good a leader they are. And it just kind of a part of it is they have different responsibilities. But anyway, they don't know everything. And the idea that everybody knows everything, but you don't know everything. Like someone might say, well, you killed whatever, and this, and you'll say, well, I didn't know my brother left the door open. My fucking brother left the door open, and then the dog went outside, got run over. And they're like, well, you had to know. It's your house.
Right.
Well, but my brother left the fucking door open. I was at work.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you motherfucker are the Illuminati. You killed the dog, and you fucking are responsible, and you know it, and you did it. And you're like, how do you explain this to somebody who's unreasonable? There's no way to explain it. Same with companies. There are things that people don't know.
Yeah.
There are things that go on in large.
But breakfast is ready. There's like oatmeal here. You can.
Awesome. But I just want to. I want to go this like this. I really want to drive this home because a lot of people, when they look at their life, they know they don't know a lot of things. Right? They might give, for example, their child a food that they didn't know was unhealthy.
Right.
They might feed their dog a food they didn't know. They're not doing it on purpose. They didn't know.
Well,
and same with business leaders. They don't know
Here was
everything.
a big scam.
And political leaders. They don't know everything.
With
They're limited
USDA.
human beings.
With the USDA, the food triangle in the 90s, I know, or up until the mid 2000s,
Yeah.
it's like, feed your kids a ton of bread. I'm a product of that. The base of everyone in America's diet should be bread. You remember the food triangle? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I remember the food triangle, yeah.
But, like, people were giving their kids bread, and they're like, give it to them with margarine, which is now illegal. You can't sell that stuff. It's illegal to sell those older formulas, those trans fat formulas.
Yeah.
But
I ate
literally, the United States government was saying this is the healthy thing to give to your children. And it was essentially poison.
But this is a good example because the thing is what these things are not. It's crazy to think that the government's job is to kill and poison all their people. This is what a lot of people believe today. Because I think it's schizophrenia from weed. I think, but a lot of people actually believe that everybody's trying to kill them, and the government, their main job is to make money and kill everybody. And they don't understand. Well, one, they don't know people in the government. They've never run things and realized how difficult it is and how much, you make mistakes and how you don't understand things. My guess with the food thing is that they were trying to make some kind of formula for people. Probably there was people eating like really shitty food, and they're like, no, you got to have some things in there. You can't just, you got to have some of this, some of this, some of this. And then, of course, over time, you realize, oh, that was not good. This is good,
Yeah.
It's not all like, I think even food companies or companies or governments, the idea that these things, the idea that everything that is big is absolutely dark and evil to the core and only purpose is to poison and kill and make money is an insane idea. I gotta say it, it's an insane idea. And it's very common these days. And it's a paranoia. It's totally lacking in reality.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to say
No, I know, but that's why I want to go into that, because it's like a lot of people secretly believe this. That's why I want to help you. We pick up these things, we kind of absorb ideas,
Right.
Even me, I do too. That's why I'm saying it for me too. because I hear these ideas and I'm like, oh, wait a second. And then I'm like, wait a second. I know people that run companies. Like, their purpose is not, like, I know these guys since they're kids. Like, their purpose is not to kill people. It doesn't make sense. This is totally insane. And it's just the idea that we are good and essentially almost everything else is. I don't know where the world's going. I think there is something terrible going on with this. I can't put it in words yet, but government is not fucking God and it's not fucking evil. It's just they're trying to kind of like utilities deliver water and gas, essentials, right? Things we need, electricity, right? The government's trying to get these things done, making sure that not too much chaos goes on and things are protected. People, get a fair share of what they earn, and someone makes an invention, they get paid for it. And of course they do a terrible job, and they're total idiots, a lot of them. But there's the reason why government exists is for these functions. And if you look at the world, it does work.
Yeah.
Better than anything in the past. Like we live longer than we've ever lived.
Yeah.
Some of these people don't realize that we live much longer than we did just a few years ago because of a lot of these things that are very imperfect. Right. That I personally also, but you gotta while you're attacking something, you have to remember where it came from, what it does, what happens when it's not there, historically why it's there, and then get some reality that it didn't start as an evil thing. It's not an evil thing, it's. I really frustrates me. I see many people, and I think this drives people into despair, and it makes them not want to succeed in life or to do anything, because they say, well, if all this is going on, then who cares if I go out and just don't provide any value to the world, or I'm not happy, right? I'm depressed, or I'm taking some kind of depression pills every day, and I'm just like in a fog all day. Or smoke weed all day. Who cares, right? It's because all these things are going on. They're not going on. The world is we live longer than we've ever lived. Our communication is what we do today, like just sitting here with all these vegetables. We're in New Jersey.
Yeah, we got ashwagandha.
We have all these foods that would never exist from Italy, from all these things, like from wherever these are from, all this stuff is from all over the world. For very inexpensive. I got a can of beans for 88 cents here. They're all cooked, low sodium.
Yeah.
The world is we are healthy, and the world is good, and things matter. The things you do matter in the future. The things you use your time with, they matter. You invest for the future. Try to build things. Try to build a company. Try to build something. Whatever it is, family. A house, don't assume everything's going to end tomorrow. It's just kind of like, I think we're brainwashing kids, and also with catastrophic thinking. Right. There was a lot of catastrophic thinking. One of the most biggest ones was that oil was going to run out by the year 2000, and it turns out that we have an oversurplus of oil now.
And now us using all the oil is going to poison the planet, which I'm not saying it won't, but there is constantly going to be a sky is falling thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it is important to somehow be wise enough to take issues seriously, right, and to analyze them, and then also to not fall victim to catastrophic thinking, and that can be a difficult line. I know this is, you're asking a lot of people. It's like to keep the rational, despite our limited human minds, to somehow see things from a global perspective. Like, I don't mean global like globalization. Global like a balloon in the air. That's what the word originally. One of the words is like a bird's eye view of things. You're not in the trees. You're looking at the forest, right? That can be called the global view, right? You're just seeing your life, how you're acting towards people, how they're reacting. It's not all their fault. They're not all bad. You're part of it, right? You see yourself and you say, oh, I do things that cause things to happen in my life. It's not always somebody else doing something to me. Oh, wow, I can change myself, right? So that global, mature, unemotional, logical view is difficult to have. It's not easy. It's not. I'm not saying something easy here. This is a lifelong struggle, but it's worth it. Like, life is good. I think that's very important for people to know. Is that this catastrophic thinking, this idea that we will never affect the future, we're on some kind of a path that will never change. I think it's a human rights violation to teach kids this. Now, whatever it is, I'm not talking about any particular issue, but in history there's always been stuff like this. But now we're really teaching kids that there is no future, that the world will end soon. And religion was really bad about this in the past. Right. There was going to be the end, and it was going to be catastrophic. So who cares? Basically, right? Who cares about what you do in this life? All that matters is the next life. But the next life was never, really, it's not here and now. And I think that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the here and now.
Yeah.
Believing that here and now is worth it. It's worth it to get in shape. It's worth it to improve yourself. It's worth it to see companies in a realistic light. It's worth it to understand what a government is and what it does, and you know what I mean. It's worth it not to get into that black hole, kind of like everybody's the Illuminati. Everybody is only purpose is to kill and maim and destroy and poison and make money. This again, it's like truth mixed in, and then it hits. The problem with scammers is they use these things, and then it hits pay dirt in part of your human psyche.
Right.
Even you or me. Like, I'm not talking about everybody. Like, it's really dangerous.
Well, that's, to bring it full circle, kind of, health food things. The reason people end up as scammers in the first place is because they want help with something, whether it's like they're scared that this or that, and then they look, and then something touches a nerve, and then they go into that rabbit hole or whatever it is, right? So same thing with like, I'm unhealthy, let me look up, turmeric, okay, they have it at this health food store, and you go into the health food store and you see all these things, you talk to the person. Same thing with like, I wonder about, someone said something about vaccines or whatever, and then you start looking at it, and then you go down this rabbit hole, So it's always like, people end up in these places because they're looking they're looking for help, whether it's just information, or I guess at some level it's like they want to fix themselves or fix the world around them, right? Like, something's not right, they're looking to make something right within themselves, right?
No, I understand this, the reason why people do things, but the pitfalls are many, is what I'm saying, and they're very complex, and you need smart friends who can help tear you off of these things. I'm not saying anybody's bad or good here. I'm saying, like, we have a weakness for stuff. One of the things that was interesting for me, I ordered from the government, I ordered the 9/11 report, the original one, right? And I read it. And what's interesting to me was, because there's a freedom of information, you can get these kind of reports. So I read it, and then
instantly on a list, probably.
Well, no. What was surprising to me was when you look at that report online. So for example, a lot of the conspiracies are based on, like, they'll say, well, the report says this, but that's not physically possible. And then if you read it, you'll be like, that makes total sense, But if you actually read the original report, it's been doctored. So things are being doctored to create the conspiracy in you and to make it obvious that everyone's trying to fool you. But if you get the original information, now I'm not saying there's no conspiracies. There are conspiracies, but there are things that are covered up because of corruption and things like that. I was talking about that with the milk thing. That was definitely something that was a conspiracy until it was finally out. And now I think it's worse than a conspiracy. It's the truth. The guy's the head of the FDA now. It's like crazy. But there are a lot of people who want to manipulate, destroy, undermine. Now, maybe they have some frustration with life. Maybe they don't feel good about themselves. Maybe they were from a very chaotic background where they like when everybody's chaotic. I think it's important you want to be super honest and able to face the most darkest truths, right, about anything that a government could do to you. You have to be able to face that. Just know that not everything's in your interest, and terrible things have happened to people just absolutely just unbelievable things. And so you have to accept that and realize that is true, you know. So I'm not saying that these things cannot happen and do not happen. They do happen. But the thing is, you don't want to fall into that thinking. And it's this thinking that it's very sticky, and this thinking that never ends, because that feeling of lostness in, like, there's no hope and everything's falling apart, everyone's evil, that feeling just goes one issue to the next. The feeling remains in your body, in your mind,
Right.
and it destroys your motivation.
Yeah, in some sense, it's more like the feeling justifying itself with a thought.
Right. It's like how can I, you justify
How can I
what-
keep this emotion that I'm at some level addicted to?
or what is the reason why I have this? Oh, it must be that, I must have intuition.
Why do I feel like this? Oh, it's Trump.
Right. It gets to the point where you start to guess, and and it's like, it becomes very, very, you're almost looking for new issues to justify this feeling, I think children should be told that they can do things, that life can be different, that men envision a different world and they create things that help people, and that you can create art, and that you can create music that will lift people's souls, is that this can happen. And not every band is the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Not every poet was trying to control you. It's like this. It sounds so ridiculous when I say it now, but this is true. Like, a lot of people subconsciously, and I think what I'm saying to everybody here is that I would say to you is, what percentage has this seeped into your mind? Because this stuff does not go away. Like, I was taught that. Okay, one thing I was taught when I was a kid, I had to take a class in the 80s called Global Cooling. Okay, that was a class we had to take. And it was about, we had to read Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring. Yeah, and we had to study about global cooling and acid rain. And by...
Cooling or warming?
Cooling.
Oh.
No, it was global cooling we had to study.
Oh.
I took a class, global cooling, and at Saddleback College. And we had to study basically about how the world was going to, basically it was just going to be acid rain, so you couldn't go outside because it was going to burn your face, right? And all the trees' leaves were going to fall off. All the water outside was going to be destroyed. So the acid was going to go into all the lakes, so there'd be no more fresh water, right? And salt water you can't drink, and it would be acidic too. And basically there was going to be big factories with huge polluting, black soot just going into the air. And we had these like nuclear umbrellas that people would walk in under. And it was dark all the time. There was no sunlight. This is what we read and were taught in school. And I remember, like, I don't know, I was pretty optimistic, and I just didn't. I don't know. My teacher was teaching us, and I had to study this and memorize it to pass the class. But so when the global warming,
wasn't that then a victory or an example of good government? Because there was fear of acid rain and fear about the ozone layer, and then in the 70s and the 80s they did pass clean air and clean water legislation.
That's a great point. It's a great point, and
that did in fact
have an effect, big effect.
Like there was a real risk of the ozone layer, and there was a real risk of acid rain, and they did pass legislation.
Okay,
to help
that's absolutely true.
So there is some good government.
Absolutely,
right?
and also, the other thing to back your point up, it was the carbo fluid. What is it? The freezer or the air conditioner.
Oh,
fluid.
right.
Hydrofluorocarbons.
Hydrofluorocarbon was targeted and globally, basically taken out of the food chain. They still use it in China, but most countries doesn't use it, and they've actually healed the ozone layer. And also
just around north, above China.
And when I was young, and we were in LA, the air was really terrible. Like, I had a girlfriend in Downey, and I used to go up there, and the air was like, I used to remember when I drive to LA, there was a big sign on the side of the road. It said smog, and it said what the rating was that day, because I was coming from Orange County.
Right.
And I was always like, I look at the sign, and that was when I would notice how smoggy it was, because even looking at the sign was a little bit fuzzy. Yeah, seeing the stuff. Well, on the bad days when they say, like, today is dangerous, don't go outside.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I moved to China, it was even worse,
Yeah.
And then what happened was is that there were, and this is where it takes wisdom. this is where we need to be wise, because Dave is absolutely right. There are things that are wrong and need to be fixed, and can be fixed. And one of the things was, that I didn't know at the time, was that a lot of the factory pollution was easy to get rid of. So that's another thing you have to always look at, is the price of things. If you're going to destroy the economy and people are going to die and suicides and everything over something that's not that dangerous, then you have to say, wait a second, what are my priorities here? I'm not saying what to do with any particular thing. I'm just saying that you always have to say, is how much does it cost? And then, just like when you buy things, you have to decide, how many times am I going to use, and what is the value of this gold diamond studded, whatever you call it, dog collar, right? What's the value in that? Is this worth, my kid on a ventilator, or the diamond studded? So what society did with those things, they're good examples, but I don't see them. I'm going to add a little addendum here, because this stuff is very complex. I don't see this exactly as the way probably Dave sees it, because Dave will say that's government and that's environment. I think part of it was a realization by
people,
by companies, that it was actually pretty easy to clean up it was pretty cheap and easy to clean up the pollution going out of a factory. Because let me finish. Because when you have a mobile device like a car, it's harder to stop the pollution in a car than it is in a factory. Because a factory, you can have huge nets and huge filters that are very heavy, and they're just solid and the stuff, and the pollution has to go through that. It's very simple to do. In a moving vehicle, it has to get your gas mileage and crash tests and everything. It's much harder to stop the pollution. So you always have to go for the low-hanging fruit. What's the worst thing? What's the easiest to fix? What's the cheapest? And society always has to go into those things. So even when government does do good things with these type of things and interferes with capitalism, which, like as Dave said, is definitely some success stories there. And I'm glad the air is clean. I personally care. I'm glad. I totally agree with Dave. The air is great now compared to before. And also there's more people now, so it's even more amazing. But, you have to say, what was the real reason for the change? A lot of times change comes because its time is here. So, for example, in the history of governments, a lot of things they tried to do did not work. But the 70s pollution thing did work. Why did it work? Partly because its time was here. So capitalism had, you girl. Capitalism had created some anti-pollution devices, and man's creativity and invention had made things that were able to implement these things rather than shut them all down. We were able to keep, producing things and have an economy and limit the pollution. We were able to do that, and that should give you not only faith in the government, but more faith in the entrepreneurs and the businesses themselves, because they actually did implement it. They didn't cover it up. You look at cars today, factories today, the amount they pollute is almost nothing compared to before. I don't know what it is. I think one car pollutes about 50 cars equals one motorcycle, because the motorcycle doesn't have that big catalytic converter on it. And then factories are a million times more than that. They're so clean now. It's amazing.
So let me ask, in terms of China, isn't there? Here's kind of how I maybe think of it. I don't think it's the answer, but it's one way that I try to rationalize it, right? Where it's that they have so many people that they have enough people that they're willing to let die before they get to that point, before that tipping point, because they have so many people.
Well, it's complicated. Because it's complicated because
I know
we also are willing to let people die, also just lower numbers.
Right. So their threshold is a lot higher. So they're
their threshold is higher. So
just
there's a parts per million. I don't know what it is. I think it's 12 or whatever that they allow chocolate to have of rat or cockroach, because cockroaches love chocolate and sugar, and they're always going to be around, cockroaches, and they're going to get into the chocolate. But there's an amount that they allow, right? Now you could say, oh, you get chocolate's got to be 0%, but then chocolate's going to be $15 a bar. No one's going to be able to afford it.
make sure, yeah.
Right. So you got to like say, so what is the balance, right? It's always what are the priorities, what is the balance?
I will say when I was...
And China has a different calculation, and that doesn't mean evil. That often means, I'll just add this on to answer your question, it means different stage of development. Okay, so for example, the U.S. in 1900, and in London, when the London fog was killing people, they had a different tolerance for dying and for human life. They had a different level, like a balance of human life and money than London does today.
Right. Back then, they had children in the factories getting their arms cut off.
The reason why they had that is not because they're evil back then. It's not because it was the patriarch back then. It's not because men were in charge. It's not because companies were evil. It's because they were in a stage of development. And if you look at any look at farmers, they used to have like 14 kids. Why? Some of the kids are eaten by wolves and die, helping the farm, and get eaten and this and that, and poisoned. Not poisoned, but sorry. Sick in the fields,
or break their bones.
Cow
kicks them or something.
Yeah, they were willing in the old days. Families would have a lot of kids, and they were very poor, and they just kind of accepted some kids were not going to make it because of disease before penicillin and before vaccines that took out polio and different diseases. There was a acceptance of death for children, which we do not have today at all.
Right.
We've totally changed on that one, and it's part of a stage of development. I believe it's a stage of development. It's the same as Japan used to have a lot of brothels for foreigners.
Right.
And then as they got rich, they're like, we're closing all these.
Right.
My friend, I actually know a Japanese guy who ran a brothel for U.S. military people near the Imperial Palace. Yeah, and food. I call them food.
Well, I read the beginning of that book that you told me about, with the guy who went to his funeral.
Oh, yeah, that's
so
a
I
great
read the beginning of the book.
What an awesome book.
Yeah.
Great story. It's a great story. But, as countries get more rich, they care. And it's the same with families. When you're trying to make your business happen, you might take a lot of risks. And whereas when you get more rich, let's say you're an adventure sports guy. Let's use that guy who died of the stingray in the heart.
Oh, Steve Irwin. Yeah.
Steve Irwin. He was trying to make a name for himself, and he was willing to take risks more and more and more to build his brand up. Yeah. The problem was he didn't have priorities, and he didn't realize that now he's made it. Now it's time to slow down on putting his life at risk all the time, because now he's got something, right?
Yeah.
So this is a natural kind of the way humans think. We take risks. We invest in things that are risky when we're younger. As you get older, you say, no, let's go with an S&P 500 mirroring fund, right? No more, crazy, startups that are going to change the world, right. So that we can kind of end it, because this has been a great discussion.
Yeah, I do want to just put out there, a few years ago I went to Beijing, and I was touring smelting factories out and around the countryside outside of the city, and the government did make them put in like anti-pollution things. So
absolutely. China has cleaned up pollution big time.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's a good point. China has really, really improved. When I left Shanghai, the air was terrible.
Beijing was still brown, looking outside, it was still brown outside.
Some days were so bad, it was so terrible. But no, they've really improved it a lot. And is it because the government was evil and now they're not evil? Or was it because they're, what is the reason? The reason is because the price became too high. The unrest was getting very strong. People were just at their wits' end. And they don't have a democracy in China, but they can be killed. And there can be revolutions. And people can go crazy and cause massive unrest, upheaval that overturns things. So the government, whenever things get too bad, there's always some kind of if a government's going to stay in charge, they have to respond to things. They can't let it keep getting worse, and then people are getting more and more angry. Finally, there's going to blow up. So they said, okay, this is it. And I think in that sense, they did quite a good thing, wise. They said, we made our money on polluting everything and not following the rules, but now we're here. Now we're at a certain stage. Now, this is we're talking 5 years ago.
Right.
So we're a different stage now. But at that point, and I think they did a good job. And you know what's interesting too is that when I left China, a lot of people, even my friends in China, the Chinese experts, they would say that they think this is fake. They think the government's just pretending like they always did before. And I always said no. And you can go back and talk to any of my friends in that period. I said no. I said the government's serious this time. They're going to do it. And everybody's like, well, how do you know? I'm like, they're going to do it this time. Because I could feel the unrest was too big. And so they did do it. And it's really quite a beautiful thing. So the air is good. Their goal in China is to have the air cleaner there than LA. And then they can say...
Actually, a lot of LA's pollution comes over the ocean from China, so...
Nah, a lot of LA pollution. The old name for LA was Valley of the Smoke, the Indians. I studied California history. And it was called the Valley of the Smoke, the original Indian name of LA. And it's because there's the San Andreas Mountains, and they serve as there was like a half dome, a circle, half moon around the city. So it comes off and it gets stuck in there. And then the air is kept down like a cap, and the cool air goes over. Right. So it keeps the hot air, it keeps the pollution in LA, and it doesn't just go to the desert like it normally would in most cities. Yeah. It gets stuck there. It gets capped in LA. So the LA pollution thing, a lot of it is geography. That's what people do. Again, everybody just assumes the most simple thing. LA must be the most polluted place. But if you study things, they become more complicated, and you have to be mature enough that you can listen to other viewpoints, because often they're right and you're wrong. And it doesn't mean you're an idiot. It doesn't mean that you're always wrong.
Yeah, you just didn't have information.
It just means you didn't see something here, and now it's a chance to, okay, I see it now. I see where I was wrong in my thinking, or my acting, Right. So I think that's the message. That's the message, is to go down this route. I don't even know how to describe this route, but this is the good route. It keeps you from anger. It keeps you from...
I think, okay, maybe we could sum it up as something like, there is still, there is silver linings, there is good in things, right? Because if you're just concentrated, you could look at it through the negative lens, but you could also look at it through a positive lens. There's a positive lens available.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because I don't look through it through a positive lens. I think the mechanism of being honest with yourself and listening to other people, I think it's the opposite. I think the world is good. And once you really understand it, you will feel positive, because you'll realize the world is good. It's not coming from you, I have a positive view, so my life is good. I think the world is good. I think people are good. I think the air and the sun and our planet and the things around us, they're obviously very complicated things around us. I think that in the end, we're very lucky to be here. Very lucky to be alive. Miracles even, So once you realize that, once you realize, say you're very lucky, a car almost hits you, you just will feel good, because you'll be like, man, I could have died, I think that's the sense I'm talking about. But once you realize what is actually going on in the world, you don't need a positive view, because a positive view is or a negative view is by definition is trying to force a viewpoint on things. I think it's okay to think, if something is terrible, say a relationship is terrible, it is very good not to have a positive view of that, and just to see how terrible this fucking thing is. So I think to see things is the key. And then when you see things, you will have a point of view. And that's what you want to do. Always don't try to put a point of view on things. Try to see things, see yourself, improve yourself, and then from that, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. You don't need to cloak yourself in a positive thing. You can just let life in. Let it soak in. Let people come to you. Let things happen. See things and absorb things. And I think, my view is that you will come to a good point. But even if you don't, I still think you're on the right track. Is going for the truth, going for reality, constantly knowing that you're wrong, constantly knowing things are complicated. Every issue is so complicated. Everything. And that's what I do with my friends. Look, we'll all say something, and like Dave will say something completely opposite. So people will say, "Oh, those guys couldn't get along." We get along fucking great because both of us are in the same mindset. We are in this kind of same mindset, and we don't mind shifting around because the mindset's the same. We want to see what's going on, and partly I do want to get poked once in a while with a different point of view. I want to get poked because otherwise, I know I'm a human. I'll fucking go down that road of being right all the time, and that's what happens. You're right all the fucking time and then you look around you and say, "My life is shit, but I'm right all the time."
Right.
Like, what the fuck? Where do I start here?
Very
You know?
common thing. Very common thing.
Very common thing. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. This has been the morning breakfast conversation. I thought I'd just kind of record it. Gabe is here. What's up,
Woo!
Gabe?
And Drinkin Dave's over there. So.
He's just getting ready. He's going to do something. We climbed a mountain yesterday. It was fucking awesome. I'll put some of the footage in here. It was really great. And you'll see we got lost. We were like off trail. We're getting bit. There's ticks. You know, it was like it was great. It was absolutely great and really fun. So I'm glad I pressed the record button. That's all I can say. I'm very glad. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and love to hear some deep thoughts on this one. Later on.